I can still picture her expression, the smug, almost scripted smile, the way her perfectly manicured nails tapped rhythmically on the polished oak table, as if she was already mentally counting her winnings. She didn't even glance at me when the lawyer began reading the will. She didn't have to. In her mind, the game was already over, and she had won. 5 months earlier, when Dad married Vanessa, I tried to convince myself her feelings were genuine. She was young, strikingly attractive, and had a knack for laughing at all his jokes. My father was brilliant but lonely after losing my mother. I wanted to believe she could bring some light back into his life. She called me kiddo, bought me a watch for my graduation, and made lasagna on Sundays, even though she openly disliked cooking. I let her into my trust. I shouldn't have. It started subtly. She'd forget to tell me about family dinners. She changed the locks while I was at work. Dad began echoing her words, little digs about how I was still finding my path. And then came the night I overheard her phone conversation. She didn't bother whispering. Once he's gone, it's all mine. The kid won't get a cent. That's how we planned it. I froze in the hallway, fingers gripping the wall so tightly they ached. She saw me standing there, met my eyes, and ended the call with a smirk. Don't look so shocked, kiddo. This is how the world works. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I smiled. That was the moment the plan began to form. Vanessa believed my father's will was unchangeable. She had no idea that Dad trusted me far more than he ever trusted her. What she didn't know was that for months, I'd been quietly helping him restructure his estate, long before his health took a turn. When the doctor used the word terminal, Dad called me into his study. You'll be fine. She's not as smart as she thinks. He handed me the number of Robert, his closest friend and attorney for over 3 decades. Together, we rewrote the will, not to cut Vanessa out entirely, Dad wasn't cruel, but to ensure she couldn't touch the majority of his assets without my consent. The key was a single clause, tucked deep in the legal language, meaningless to her now but destined to change everything. When Dad passed, Vanessa didn't shed a tear. She wore black, but her smile lingered through the entire funeral. Within 3 days, she was already in talks with a real estate broker about selling his properties. One afternoon, she cornered me in the kitchen. Don't bother showing up for the will reading. You're not in it. I met her gaze. I'll be there. She laughed like I'd just delivered the best punchline she'd ever heard. The day of the will reading smelled faintly of leather and old paper. Robert sat at the head of the table, glasses low on his nose. Vanessa sat to his right, draped in black silk, every inch the queen waiting for her coronation. The opening was predictable: donations to charities, gifts for longtime staff. Then Robert spoke my name. Vanessa's smile faltered. And to my son, Robert read, I leave full controlling interest in the Winston Holdings Trust, including all associated accounts, assets, and properties, except for the residence at 4 Park Lane and a living stipend of $100,000 per year, which I leave to my wife, Vanessa. Her head snapped toward him. That's it, she demanded. Robert gave a faint smile. Per the clause in paragraph 14, any sale, lease, or transfer of trust assets requires the sole written consent of your stepson. Without his approval, you cannot liquidate or encumber any property within the trust. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She turned to me, her eyes sharp as glass. You planned this? I leaned back, unmoved. No, Vanessa. Dad did. I just made sure it was unbreakable. She pretended not to care, but I saw the truth over the next several months, when her credit cards were declined because the joint accounts belonged to the trust, when brokers stopped calling after realizing she had nothing to sell. The best part? I let her stay in the house. I let her think she still had some power. And when she tried to secretly rent out the guest wing without my consent, I enforced the clause. The house was sold, legally, without her approval. She still got her $100,000 a year, exactly as the will promised. Enough to survive, but far from the lavish lifestyle she thought she had secured. The last time I saw her, she was outside the gates of 4 Park Lane, suitcase at her feet. She didn't meet my eyes as I passed. I stopped briefly. Guess you were wrong, kiddo, I said. Her jaw tightened, but she said nothing. I kept walking. Revenge isn't about anger, it's about patience. About knowing when to stay silent until the ground beneath your enemy crumbles. Dad used to say, A sharp mind cuts deeper than a sharp blade.